Cabinet has been meeting now for around about 6 months, and its purpose on many days is to resolve disagreements, work through difficult problems, find solutions, find a way forward, and today was another example of us doing just that. As the COVID pandemic continues to roll on around the world, we're encouraged by what we're seeing out of Victoria now. We're encouraged about the relaxation of the restrictions that we've seen in Victoria and regional areas. We're hopeful that the roadmap that has been outlined by the Victorian Premier continues to be achieved, and we hope it continues to be accelerated in response to the case numbers that we're seeing there. And that it was refreshing news. It's good news that ACT is being opened up to Queensland. There's a lot of progress that is being made, and we continue to resolve to make that progress each and every time that we come together. It's about working together to just solve problems and keep moving forward. Australia is the envy in many respects of so many other countries around the world in how we are managing both the health consequences of the COVID pandemic and the economic consequences of the COVID pandemic. This was brought home again this week by the employment figures that came out yesterday. I mean, these are employment numbers that have seen more than half now. More than half of the jobs lost come back. That's good news. And as Victoria continues to improve, as we saw job losses in Victoria, we will see that situation only go forward further. We saw not that long ago that in the June quarter that we had a fall in the size of our economy in that June quarter by some 7%. But we've learned just this week that just across the ditch in New Zealand, in that same quarter, they saw a fall of over 12%. Australia is managing both the economic and the health impacts of this COVID pandemic better than almost any other part of the world in developed economies. Countries like, of course, Korea, South Korea, have also been doing extremely well. Economies like Taiwan also doing very, very well. But when it comes to the league table of how countries are managing both, that is something that I think Australians can take some confidence from and some encouragement from. And the National Cabinet has been a key vehicle through which we've been able to achieve that. We haven't always agreed. There's been the odd exchange of words from time to time. But I want to reassure Australians that when we get in that room, we solve things. We make the compromises that are needed from time to time to get to a yes and to get to going forward. And that's what's happened again today. Let me run you through some of the arrangements that we addressed today, the issues, I should say, we addressed today, and some of the agreements that were taken. We did note, and you would have seen from the common operating picture, that the testing levels across Australia, the testing rates, we noted that they need to be improved. And so to that end, I welcome the fact that we're advised that Western Australia is actually moving to sewage testing, which is an important other testing method to give us an understanding of the presence and the spread of the virus. This has also been done now in the ACT for some time and other jurisdictions. I can also note that not only has Victoria, Tasmania and Western Australia taken up the COVID pandemic leave disaster payment, that is also now to be taken up by New South Wales, and those arrangements will be put in place over the next little while. And those that ensures that when someone has a positive COVID test, they can get access to those payments. And I believe Queensland will follow shortly. There's just a couple of issues that have been finalised between the Queensland Government and the Commonwealth Government, and we had positive discussions with the Queensland Premier about that today, and I look forward to that being in place very, very soon. We welcomed the extension today of telehealth. This is a major commitment, a $2 billion commitment that will see telehealth services continued for a further 6 months out to the end of March of 2021. One of the things we've been able to do with telehealth is we've reached more and more Australians through these health services, and particularly in relation to mental health services. We have learned a great deal during the COVID pandemic about how these services can be delivered even more effectively, and especially in regional and remote areas. And so this is a big lesson out of the COVID-19 pandemic. This will continue, as I said, till the end of March. But of course, we're working on future plans on telehealth as to where it goes beyond that time. But for now, that ensures that we have a certainty of that support and that people can access those telehealth services out over that period of time. It was also pleasing to note today that the 15 mental health centres that have been opened now in Victoria, and they are receiving patients who are coming and getting that help, and that's been another important COVID initiative. Today we received reports from Dr Alan Finkel and Commodore Hill on the tracing regimes. Following the last meeting, what we were able to arrange with the Victorian Government is the Victorian Government, together with the New South Wales Government, did a comparison of the New South Wales and Victorian tracing regimes. And the good news about that is there was lots of lessons learned, and the upgrade that has been taking place with the Victorian tracing regimes, they're to be commended for. And we've seen that working in particular just in these last few days as they've been dealing with a particular outbreak. And so what we've seen is a lifting of the bar with the tracing capacity, and we welcome that in Victoria. And what was agreed today is that the work that Dr Finkel and Commodore Hill has done will now be spread across all the other states and territories, and under the Commonwealth lead we'll be taking the lessons out of that New South Wales-Victorian exchange and applying that to each of the states and territories. So that will provide a reckoner against a benchmark to ensure that we keep our tracing systems up to standard and up to being match fit over time as well.